And how has Fresh impacted or changed your life?
I think what it's done for me is it's built me up from a time where I was capable but had little self-confidence to being quite content with being less capable but having more surety in who I am.
If you're academically minded, you would have understood that. For me, oh yeah, Lucy's fine, she's academic. For me, he'll explain a little bit more. Cool, so what are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about the science versus faith debate.
Whoa.
Because I'm a physicist.
Ooh, a physicist. And what, are you studying physicist?
Yes.
Where?
Work. First year work.
Cool. Round of applause for that.
So what I'm going to talk to you about is my perspective on this thing that we call the science versus faith debate. And the first thing I'm going to do is tell you that the title I've picked is a terrible title. It's just one of the most misleading, unhelpful titles, potentially, of all time ever. So I'm going to correct it. The first thing is to get rid of the verses, and the second thing is to change from debate to dialogue. If we frame science and faith as being verses and debate, it will always be verses and debate. So let's not do that. Because if it's versus and debate, it's a battle and somebody loses, but actually, if they're completely complementary, then nobody loses. So that's the first thing. I've totally got an agenda in every way. I'm going to be really upfront about that. I want to convince you that science and faith are complementary, that there are two worldviews and both of them are a bit screwed up, and if we try and compare the two, we might be able to improve both of them. That is my aim, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone. And I hope I make you laugh, because I find some of this funny. So. Right, so here's what I want to talk about. 4 parts, both worlds from the inside. I'm a scientist and a Christian, so I have experience of being a scientist and a Christian. And the nature of truth, this is a really important one. How we talk about truth, what we mean. How to dialogue, not debate, I'll flesh that out. And science as theology, which is what I really want to get to. So, just to flesh those 4 things out, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to cover. It's quite a lot to get through, and I will be using some big words. Sorry, but hopefully it will all be nice and easy to understand. Or it won't be, but don't worry. The physics, it won't be easy to understand, but that's because nobody understands it. The students don't understand it, the lecturers don't understand it, the theorists don't understand it. But I'll explain the fact that not understanding is fine later on. So, both worlds from the inside. Labels never help. If we label somebody as scientist and we label somebody as Christian, that's a really stupid thing to do. It is equally stupid to label anyone with any label. So I found, for your viewing pleasure, some unhelpful labels, or just labels that in general I find particularly amusing. I think this one is brilliant, because what parent isn't going to know that? I'm just going to let you read that one. Can you read it? For external use, I wonder, whatever this cream is, I don't know. For external use only, avoid contact with eyes, ears, brain, and surrounding membranes. Do not put any persons in this washer. Do not eat the iPod Shuffle. That's the obvious use. Now, this one, I wonder how many letters of complaint were sent in before they put that on it, because you don't just put that label on a set of screwdrivers. For those of you at the back, not to be inserted into penis, and there's a diagram. The point that I'm making is expressed perfectly in this label. Peanuts, 100%. Allergy advice contains peanuts. Now, this label is true. It is peanuts, it contains 100% peanuts. Don't eat it if you have a peanut allergy. The problem with people is that people are not 100% peanuts. Nobody is 100% anything. I am not 100% Christian, I am not 100% scientist, because there is no fundamental. Nobody is actively, completely at the pole of any spectrum. We are all little bits of lots of labels. So labels are never helpful, because if you label me as Christian, here's what some people might think if you put Christian into Google. They may think I'm purposefully using general terms that have a range of meanings. And often the actual meaning of the term is not the one that we think it is. So they're going to assume I'm a creationist, homophobic, probably judgmental and self-righteous, a literalist, quite what that means out of context I don't know, and a fundamental absolutist. A faith-dyed wallhead is my favourite, courtesy of our favourite scientist, Dawkins, rubbing his face up against a shell, as he is often seen to do. That's his way of saying irrational. But we can flip this round. Just because I'm a scientist, this is the scientist label, what do some people think by that? An evolutionist. A societal secularist, somebody who in social spheres is majorly secularist. Judgmental and self-righteous, you might spot something with that one. A materialist or a mechanist, in my view of reality. A relativistic absolutist, and cold-hearted. Now, what I put here are, as a scientist, specific things that I have definitely had the sense that Christians think scientists are. This is my personal experience. If you disagree, fine. But personally, this is something I have found. I have found that people assume as a scientist I am lacking in spirituality, unable to read the Bible properly is a favourite of mine, indoctrinated by Western culture, compromising on matters of faith, and devoid of Christian morality. Now, if we have Christian and we have scientist, then we put the two lists up, and we compare the two lists. You will notice that what we have here are a set of polarisms. We have a set of the poles of the definitions of these two words that in most cases correlate, as in one is the opposite of another. So I'm going to particularly pick on fundamental absolutist and relativistic absolutist. Fundamental absolutist is the whole there is only one truth and I am privy to it. Relativistic absolutist is everyone is true but I am more true, essentially. That's what it boils down to. So they're pretty much the same. They're both absolutists. And then we have judgmental and self-righteous on both of them. And a couple of issues that are going to keep coming up. So labels never help. We have to stop assuming that we know what everyone else thinks because of a label. So, being a Christian at the hands of scientists. Here are some popular... Dawkins. Shell. I love that photo. Oh dear. Dastardly dick, what a dude. Anyway, so, being a Christian at the hands of scientists, here are some, in the media, at the forefront, scientists who speak openly against Christianity. What I want to point out is there is one biologist here, and that's Dawkins. All the rest of them are physicists. So I'm in a bit of trouble. If there is a case for argument about Christianity, it's with the physicists, not the biologists. Chemists have no opinion, they don't get involved at all. Richard Feynman, my personal favourite, my hero. Peter Higgs is on there. Hawking. Murray Gell-Mann is hilarious, he's on there as well. Now these are all out there in the public sphere, doing their thing, doing documentaries. Dawkins is wearing his t-shirt that says, "Together we can cure it," religion, or whatever his current statement is. So that's what we have, to some degree. I'm a Christian at the hands of scientists. But what about being a scientist at the hands of Christians? This is an image of the proponents generally of a literalistic Christianity. Because that is where the conflict lies with science. These are the people who, if you know anything about what I'm talking about, these are the people you have seen on television. If I could draw your attention particularly, I know it's not clear, to the bottom right-hand side, that's Ken Hogan from America, who's an absolute idiot. Right, so here we have scientists, and here we have some Christians. Again, I am polarising. I mean to be polarising. I am not saying sweeping generalisations, this is everyone. The point I am making is the people in the media are polarised. Who has heard of the people on the left? At least one person from the people on the left. Put your hand up if you've heard of one person. Put your hand up if, apart from Ken Hovind, who I told you about, is there anyone on that left side you've heard about? Right side. One person, 2 people, 3 people have heard of somebody on that side. You see, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to tell you my perspective. What it has been like for me as a scientist who is a Christian. Yes, there are these people out in the media that everyone knows who are scientists speaking against Christianity. And they have some good points that should be addressed. I don't have much to say about them. What I have something to say about is I have something to say about relationship. Which is, I have felt more attacked by Christians because I'm a scientist than I ever have by scientists because I'm a Christian. That the way, and when I say we, I mean Christianity, I'm not pointing fingers, but I include myself in this. The way we are treating people is a problem. All of these labels are there because that's what people think and that comes from their experience. Something is happening somewhere with the way we treat people. There aren't loads of Christians out there in the media telling us science is wrong, but there are Christians relationally talking to other people with conflicting worldviews and saying things that are hurtful. And we need to face up to this. This is only my experience. Feel free to disagree. Not with my experience, because it's my experience, but disagree that it's not the case. So that's personally what I think is happening. You have these 2 groups. Nobody's heard of them. Everyone's heard of them. So really the fight that we need to be fighting is relationship. Is how are we treating people? This meme captures it quite well. It says, arguing with Christians is like playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good I am at chess, the pigeon is just going to knock over the pieces, crap on the board, and strut around like it's victorious. It feels like that, sometimes, talking with people. It feels like that when I'm talking to mechanistic atheists. The problem is, it feels like that when I'm talking to Christians sometimes, as well. There is a problem here. It's not in debate, it's in relationship. So this is the sort of stuff I wanted to talk about at the start. I'm hoping we've covered number 1. So now, number 2. The nature of truth. This is a hot topic. We have absolute truth, we have absolute morality, we have absolutisms and fundamentalisms. And perhaps we're wrong by doing that. Model-dependent realism is my worldview. It is the worldview I take. And to illustrate it, I want to introduce you to my goldfish. It's not actually my goldfish. I got it off Google. Where is the goldfish?
On the screen.
That's a good answer. Didn't expect that. Where's the goldfish? Water, yeah. Where else? Are you sure? You only say it's in a tank because that's what you expect, and you're right. But the only way you know that goldfish is in a tank is because we can pan out and take a look. For the goldfish, there is no way the goldfish can know it is in a tank. I could write for you a set of 5 equations. They're basic. All A-level students who do maths or physics will know them. That describe perfectly the mechanics of the motion of a ball if you throw it. This fish, if it were sufficiently intelligent, could write a set of equations that perfectly describe what it sees if somebody throws a ball outside of that goldfish bowl. But the bowl is going to curve what it sees, right? It's going to get a distorted view. You could still write those equations. Who's to say who's right? Who's to say we are right? We can write equations of what we see, but we cannot see our own goldfish bowl. Now, I'm purposefully being a bit analogous and metaphorical because the full philosophy of this, which I'm happy to talk to you about later if anyone wants to, is a little bit more complicated. But essentially what I'm saying is, who's to say that there are not infinite systems within systems? That we are not in a goldfish bowl, and that goldfish bowl is not in a goldfish bowl. From inside the goldfish bowl, there is no way of telling what is true. You can say what is true inside your one particular goldfish bowl, but that isn't the truth. So we need to be very careful, because all of this absolutism that happens within some sects of Christianity and within absolutist atheism or scientificism, it has no basis. So, if we can't really say what is true, what do we know? Ironically, the only thing that we really know for certain is that we know nothing for certain, which is quite an impressive knowledge claim, given the context. The irony there is sizable. The only thing we know for certain is that we know nothing for certain. Does everyone see the irony? If you're saying you know nothing for... Actually, this statement is completely fine. There is nothing wrong with this statement, because the statement that we know nothing for certain is actually a statement about axioms, which means that it's totally self-consistent. I'll explain that again if you want me to later. But essentially, what do we know? We know nothing for certain. We have to accept this. Systems within systems, you cannot see your own goldfish bowl. Now, I'm going to read something to you here. Sometimes nothing makes sense. Sometimes when you look at the world, all it screams is you are wrong. Life is not what you think it is. You are not who you think you are. Your place is not where you thought it was. The truth is not what you believed it was. The future does not look like you imagined it would. But you know what? The world was right. You were wrong about so much. And while it hurts to realise how wrong you were, it is worth it. It is worth it, finally realising you will forever be wrong. Reality is just too much for you to understand. So now that you know you are wrong, being wrong doesn't seem to matter so much, because being wrong doesn't mean you've missed the truth. It just means you're not there yet. Truth, I am coming for you. It doesn't matter if I am forever wrong. I promise you that I will get forever closer. This is one of my favourite quotes from a wonderful modern philosopher. That was me, in case you didn't realise. So, what do we know? We know nothing absolutely, but we can say a lot about the system we're in. And actually, in the dialogue between Christians who are making absolute statements and scientists who are making absolute statements, it's really important we both acknowledge this. This is the biggest step that can happen to ensure that we dialogue and not debate. I need to hurry up. Conflicting worldviews or complementary studies. What do I mean by that? I'm going to take an example. This is a picture, I know you can't see it particularly well, but it basically shows evolution of all of life from single-celled organisms in the big pond right up until now. Which conflicts with, apparently some people say it conflicts with this sort of image, which is a depiction of the account in Genesis. We cannot say either is true. This is really important. We cannot say either is true. What we can say is we're trying to model our goldfish bowl. So the thing that links these two seemingly conflicting worldviews is the fact that they are in fact a complementary study. That's all they are. If we stop making absolute statements, science and faith become models of what we're living in. There's nothing wrong with that. They become complementary if you stop making absolutist statements. So, that's part 2. How to dialogue and not debate. I'm sure you can see where some of this is going. Faith and doubt, sceptical skepticism. Doubt is not a bad thing, because it is the opportunity to move from one goldfish bowl to a bigger one. If you start doubting something, you might discover your model was incorrect. You move on to a bigger model. I'm not saying we discover something when we stop being Christian. I'm saying we discover something and we become fuller Christians, closer to the truth. I am asserting there is a truth, just that we cannot know it for certain. So we should be really excited at doubt, the opportunity to move to a bigger and better goldfish bowl. And that's just a metaphor. All I mean is getting closer to the truth. And truth has some interesting connotations, which we will jump back to shortly. Next thing, we might be wrong. If we're going to try and dialogue and not debate, we have to be very willing to say that we might be wrong. Everything I say is a lie. It's something people who know me will hear me say regularly. Especially if I'm talking about something that fundamentally I cannot fully understand. I will always regularly go, everything I say is a lie. And if you know anything about Gödel's incompleteness theorem, then you will know that by making that statement it all becomes true. But again, that's philosophy. But the point is, by saying everything I say is a lie, you're acknowledging that you cannot know, but when you say it all at once, there is something of truth about it. If we do this with scientists, and scientists do this with us, it becomes complementary studies and not conflicting worldviews. So, being wrong does not mean there is no truth, it does not mean you have no truth. Being wrong about Christianity does not mean you become an atheist. Because being wrong does not mean your truth is wrong, it just means it's not right. You have to get a bit closer to the truth. So if we take something like creation, for example, then I think one of the reasons this has become such a hot topic, such a touchy issue, is that people's faith becomes dependent on this one thing. And if somebody disproves it, I'm not saying you can or can't disprove it. If somebody disproves it, then that disproves their faith, and then they are wrong. But if we realise creation is only a model for the truth, and somebody proves it's wrong, we just need a new one. That doesn't mean something completely different to creation, it just means something has to change somewhere. This is an attitude shift. I cannot labour, as a Christian scientist, how important it is on both sides that we manage this. So, we definitely don't know. We might be wrong, and we definitely don't know. I think I'm going to go for one more metaphorical. Actually, it's not metaphorical at all. One more illustration of what it is I'm saying here. And as I hinted earlier, it's a graph. I'm so excited. It's a truth time graph. Forget space-time. This is truth time. Feynman is turning over in his grave. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an equipotential truth line, which is a line of constant truth, at the maximum positive value of truth equal to 1. That means true. So there's a line that is true there. And I'm going to assert that, roughly speaking, what happens over the course of our lives, over the course of time, is our truth rises, that's life, and approaches the equipotential truth line. This is the truth limit. It is tending towards truth and never reaches it. Why? Because quite probably the truth is something bigger than we can comprehend. This line, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. Good. Kind of. This line here is the average person, of course. It's not smooth like that. You have ups and downs all over the place, and you probably don't go up really steeply at the beginning. I just used the 1 over x, semi-1 over x plot because it's easier. But you probably don't have that exponential relationship there. It's probably more you stay low at the beginning. What about somebody else? This is someone who becomes cynical with age. And this is someone who becomes closed-minded. So we start here, we doubt, there's the doubt, we remodel, and we end up there, close to the truth. It becomes complementary studies and not conflicting worldviews. So we definitely don't know. Bearing all of this in mind, we need to be very careful how we come across. So we must constantly be questioning our motivation. If we're talking to scientists, we must remember this is a complementary study. If we go in with the attitude of conflicting worldviews, it will be a debate and not a dialogue, which means this sort of thing is a big no. Again, it's an image on Google, which means this is what people think. There is a problem here. It's a no. No Bible slamming on desks. That was my favourite. I once had a Bible slammed in front of me when someone was saying, I am a literalist Christian, and I believe what the Bible says. So do I. It comes back to what I said earlier. I am perfectly capable of reading the Bible as a scientist. This is only my perspective. I hope I'm really making that clear. This is my perspective. But I really do believe this is a problem. So, we're here. We've done that. What you haven't done is said, well, I haven't answered really, is are there times when we should shut up? I did change that to be quiet, but obviously I didn't change it then. Sorry. Are there times when we should shut up? I would assert that if you are not qualified to talk about science, then to some extent don't. In the same way that I, not qualified to talk about medicine, should probably not really loudly go around proclaiming my viewpoint on things to do with medicine. In the same way that me not being an economist, I probably shouldn't go around loudly proclaiming my views on the economy as a Christian. We should let the people who are qualified, who are Christians, put forward the Christian viewpoint in their field, because they know their field. Which means all of those creationists, I'm just using that as an example because it's the easiest example, all of those creationists, none of whom have qualifications that are credible. Dr. Ken Hovind, although nobody knows what his doctorate was in, should not be talking about science publicly. The people who should talk about science publicly are the Christian scientists. In the same way that somebody talking about euthanasia should be somebody who has medical experience, qualified in medicine, and works with people in a psychological capacity. So, now we move on to my favourite bit. Science as theology. We're not going back to the future, but we are going back to the truth again, because this is a recurrent theme. Now I'm going to be a bit more spiritual when I'm talking about truth. So we are imago Dei, which means in the image of God. The Hebrew is better translated to mean representatives, i.e. we are God's representatives on earth. We are the outworking of his sovereignty. God is the truth. Insert God into all the times I've said the truth thus far, and we discover that God is something beyond our comprehension that we cannot actually ever get to an understanding of, but we will approach it in this lifetime, and we're constantly remodelling God. That's what we think anyway. I was just using scientific language to describe it. It's because I'm a scientist. God is the truth. The Bible is the truth about the truth. Those of you who read Richard Wurmbrand will have heard this. Theology is the truth about the truth about the truth. Now, this is from Colossians, one of my favourite books in the Bible. And I'm going to pick out by him, through him, in him, for him. And by him tells us what God does. Through him tells us God's shape. For him tells us what he likes. And in him tells us who he is. Now this is talking about the universe. So the universe is the character of God. I.e., the universe is the truth about the truth, which means the universe can be interpreted in a way similar to the Bible. So theology is the truth about the truth about the truth. The universe is the character of the truth. Science is the study of the universe. Therefore science is theology. It's another way of doing theology. How long have I got? 1 minute. Oh gosh, you're not going to get to hear the quantum mechanics. Aww. Which was where all of this was heading. So I'm going to end on what it is I want to do with my life. I want to convince people that science is theology, because you're studying the universe and God is the source of the universe. They are the same. We have spent too long in the Bible. I'm not saying anything bad about the Bible. I'm just saying the Bible says the universe is theology. We need to study it. If we can raise up a generation of Christians who think that science is theology and go into science with that mindset, it will never be a debate. It will never be a conflicting worldview. If I, as a 19-year-old physicist, can spend my life on this, and we can flood science with Christians. I need to skip over the quantum bit now. If we can flood science with Christians, then everything will be okay. I'm almost done. It's taking a long time. Sorry. The slides are... Actually, that's a wave function right there. That's actually the wave function. Anyway. Yeah. So we need to raise up a Christian science generation. So that's my perspective on the Science and Faith Dialogue, and that's Richard Dawkins and Sean. Thank you.